Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 8 of Tomo-Chan is a Girl. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So it seems as though everybody's, drawing straws. I'm not familiar with this game they're playing, but I feel like, there's something at stake here. Here you go. I think I know where this is going. Naturally, Misuzu does something to stir the pot. So the upshot of everything is that Tomo has been dared to see the fireworks display at the summer festival with Jun alone. So this is kind of a time-honored trope whereby a couple or two people where one of them wants to become a couple, they do attend the fireworks, and there's usually something in the way of an expectation of a confession, or a confession that's drowned out by the fireworks. So if nothing else, it's nice that Misuzu has an appreciation for the classics. Now I guess the real question here is whether or not anything meaningful is actually going to happen. Because, already, at least at face value, Jun doesn't seem to be too interested in it, although, he's certainly thinking to himself that this is a pretty good thing. But of course, he can't help but express some doubt to himself, and this is mirrored by how Tomo feels, and you can't really blame either of them because they both have been acting sort of weird around each other, given all the circumstances. So this is also kind of interesting. Misuzu is, I guess, sort of expressing a little bit of regret that, she was perhaps a little too callous in offering advice. Yeah, it is unfortunate when you think about it that everybody's basically sunk so much time and effort into this when they're not even really sure that it's the best approach. I mean, I am by no means an expert, but I would think that the best approach is probably just being straightforward about things. Scheming and coming up with a bunch of elaborate plans. I feel like it's really just setting yourself up for failure, The more opportunities you have for trouble to happen, the more likely trouble is going to happen. So, if your intention is just, go from point A to point B, say, hey, you want to be my boyfriend? The worst thing that can happen is they say no. But, it's not like you also rely on a bunch of other factors to go correct in order to set that up. So given that this is in fact like a sort of summer festival with fireworks and all that, it only makes sense that Tomo would end up wearing a yukata. And that's also sort of, I guess, tradition. Well, thinking about it, no, it is kind of a tradition in general, but it's sort of a stereotypical thing beyond that. The girl dresses up in the traditional clothing, the guy doesn't really do it. He just wears something he would always wear, but he's sort of, I guess, marveling at how beautiful the girl is. It is sort of telling that Jin wasn't the only one to have a sort of bizarre reaction. And I guess, given that Tomo does have a reputation for being somewhat destructive, I guess, having appeared so well taken care of, for want of a better term, that would definitely wrongfoot quite a few people. It is interesting that all these vendors are, I guess, so, maybe not invested, but they all know Tomo by name and appearance. She really must have caused a whole lot of problem in the past. Oh dear. Man, I thought things were about to get really bad. Carol on the loose. Like, that's not good, It's not like she's going to cause trouble, but she'll certainly get herself into trouble. Oh dear. So it seems that things are going to get interesting. These two guys don't know exactly what they're getting themselves into. But I guess fortunately nobody has decided it's immediately appropriate to resort to violence, as might have otherwise been the case. It is also interesting that Tomo's like, well, I don't have a boyfriend, but Jun sort of intervened in a way that might have undermined that. So this is actually a bit of an interesting outburst, Jun expressed confidence in her ability to take care of herself, but I mean, it's nice to not always have to take care of yourself. But, I don't think lashing out is necessarily an appropriate response. Yeah, this is interesting. They're both getting kind of flustered about things. And that really just speaks to how there's something at stake for both of them, and they're keenly aware of that. Unfortunately, this is kind of how, like, the whole fireworks thing goes. Everybody thinks that, oh boy, something's definitely going to happen, but it's usually sort of subtly sidestepped. Somebody intervenes, or the fireworks mask what they're trying to say and they mishear, or they just don't notice altogether. So even if both Tomo and Jun are sort of increasingly cognizant of what precisely they want, there's no guarantee we're gonna get anything concrete out of it. Especially not when there's still, like, I don't know, nearly half a dozen more episodes. I mean, if nothing else, Tomo seems to have taken the initiative to say something before the fireworks display. But, now that she's gotten his attention, actually saying the words, that's a little bit more difficult. And, lo and behold, it seems as though she might have lost her chance. Now that's unfortunate, she didn't even really decide to go for it. And I guess that might be because, there's fireworks, you don't want to miss those. But at the same time, I feel like that's almost the worst possible thing to do. To almost go for it and then back down at the last instant. Alright, well, there's something there. If nothing else, they've both had a good time, and Jun is keenly aware that, maybe you can't really get into fist fights anymore. So I guess it was sort of inevitable that the status quo has returned with one minor change. Jun seems to be a bit more hesitant by Tomo's admission. And, it makes sense, I guess, like, getting all touchy-feely wouldn't do. And it's not like, he's being inappropriate or anything, but you can't exactly get in a shoving match with your friend either. Especially if you, have feelings for that friend and she's a girl. Man, bless Carol's heart, the poor girl. Like, she just sort of assumes that everything's going to plan, and, it isn't, and in all likelihood there isn't a plan to begin with, but if nothing else, Carol has faith, and good on her for that, I suppose. Yeah, it does seem like there's a bit of drama starting to percolate, Misuzu's kind of unsettled about things, but it's not entirely clear why. If I had to hazard a guess, I'd say that if Tomo and Jun get together, she's out a friend. And, her social circle doesn't seem to be all that expansive, so, can she really afford to lose one of the few friends she has? Alright, so this is interesting. Oh, good lord. Obviously these guys were probably not going to do something all that nice with Misuzu, but Carol saw fit to just fry the guy. Oh dear. It's a bit of an anticlimax, Like, she electrocuted the one guy, but, the others are still around. Granted, I suppose it's only sort of made the situation worse, if they're not being chased by a gang who's already suffered a loss, There's a lot of sort of like quasi-gang violence that goes on here. And it's not like that stuff doesn't happen, but I feel like it's a bit, I don't know, like exaggerated or overplayed. Now, what's interesting is that Misuzu called Jun, but, explicitly told him to leave Tomo out of things. I'm not sure why. Unfortunately, things aren't working out as planned. Tomo intends to tag along, and it now looks like Misaki is going to tag along too. I guess it only makes sense. If their friends are in danger, the only reasonable thing to do would be to help out. I can't help but think that they're wasting valuable time bickering. Perhaps it'd be better to just, take care of things and then argue about it later. So here we go, I don't know if Misuzu's actually being honest or just sort of apologizing because it's convenient, but sort of acknowledging that Carol is something approximating a friend is nice. I feel like everybody, they kind of treat Carol poorly, and she definitely doesn't deserve it, Like, she is airheaded, there's not a lot going on up there. But she is a kind person. I feel like that should be worth at least something. Yeah, so just like that, any real threat posed by these guys has been quickly nullified. I mean, I guess it was so one-sided that Misaki didn't even really need to do anything. Granted, I'd imagine he's not all that strong compared to the other two, considering how monstrous they are. But, nonetheless... he is like, what, captain of the karate club or something? Oh, here we go. This is a nice change of pace. He's obviously misunderstanding things. Nobody was despoiling anything. But it certainly looked like that. And, this guy knows. Carol did nothing wrong. So, if you're picking on her, that's a rather big indictment of your character as a person. And therefore, violence is justified. I find it interesting that even Jun and Tomo sort of had to intervene to restrain him. Because, it's not like they weren't gonna beat up that guy, but... Alright, so this is interesting, because, it didn't initially seem like there was going to be trouble when this whole sequence started. But Misuzu wants to talk to these guys, despite everything they just tried to do. So, I have to wonder what angle Misuzu is playing here. You know, she seems to be throwing around the name of the Aizawa Dojo just to throw a scare into them. But I don't know, like, what's the deal here? You know, she trying to recruit them or something? You know, I guess she's issuing a threat here. You know, like, quit the gang stuff or, you know, you will definitely pay for it. Alright, so it's almost like a protection racket. You know, like, you guys, you're not gonna pick on people anymore. You are going to work for our benefit, and in doing so, you will benefit as well. I mean, this really just sort of brings up more questions than it really answers. You know, if there are other gangs such that having a gang of your own becomes, if not necessary, definitely beneficial. Well, you know, I guess that's one more point in Jun's favor, that he was sort of willing to hang back and wait for Misuzu. You know, just in case things picked up again. Although, he wasn't necessarily extending the same courtesy to Tomo. Yeah, you know what? I think it's time for the status quo again. You know, rather than that, like, half-hearted hover hand thing, Jin's just sort of, like, putting his hand on her shoulder again. Which, you know, I think that's ultimately kind of a step back, although she doesn't see it that way. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.